Hi, everyone, and welcome to Across STEM with YSI, a podcast where we explore how STEM unfolds across countries, cultures, and time. I am Abir Iftikhar, your host for today's episode, and I'm so excited to have you join us. Each conversation here is more than just about STEM, it's about stories, ideas, and the people behind them. Today, I'm absolutely honored to be speaking with Saim Sheikh, who is a intern currently at Abbott. He's a social entrepreneur and a founder of Project Agahi. Project Agahi is an AI-powered early warning system safeguarding vulnerable communities in Pakistan from devastating floods. So, Saib, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. This is a wonderful initiative, and I'm great. Alhamdulillah, everything's been fine. How are you guys?
We're doing well. We're super honored to have you here. And so, before we dive into your journey with Project Agahi, could you tell us a little more about your journey into STEM and what inspired you to focus on not just data driven solutions, but also AI in general?
So my journey into STEM was pretty clear from the start when I was in secondary school, if I'm being honest, because going towards a problem-solving field was always a dream for me ever since I started grade six. Ever since I started choosing subjects when we go into IGCSE or A level, so it was pretty clear. It was always a debate for me whether I get into engineering, I get into computer science. I chose computer science, and I'm glad for that. Around 3 years ago, and regarding AI, I would say that AI was people jumped onto that. It's been the boom. It's been the buzzword these days. But I think the problem-solving aspect of AI and how AI can be used to make people's life easier was something which caught my attention. Not just in coursework, but like just looking at people leading projects, people leading initiatives which used AI to literally like save lives or impact lives on a very large scale. So I think that was pretty inspiring, knowing that on your laptop, in your own like personal laptop in your room, you can code something which can impact millions. So I think it sounds very vague and very generic, but I think this one line just inspired me to get into this and actually try leading solutions through my knowledge. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds pretty cool. So, what would you say has been your motivation behind founding Project Agahi? What led you to come up with something that focuses on a very pressing issue, I would say?
I would say that Project Agahi is based in Pakistan. Is mainly focused on rural areas in Sindh, where I belong from. I'm from Karachi in Pakistan. So it was like a personal experience for me because I was born in Karachi in Pakistan in 2004 and lived there for around 9 years. And it was like a first-hand experience for me as well, witnessing the rains, witnessing the floods, and seeing how outdated the technology was there and how much it was negatively impacting day-to-day lives of people. So I think the journey, I would say that it began with my externship in National Geographic Society. We all researched on geological conservation in our home countries. And when I was researching on that, my research question was floods, the 2022 terrestrial floods in Pakistan. So while researching on that, I realized when I read research papers that there is no such technological solution in Pakistan for this. Like the main method of like alerting people about a natural disaster is like an announcement in the local mosque. Now, for a country, for people with millions residing in rural, that sounds very outdated, and I think that's not at all effective. So that led to me proposing that idea in my final presentation, and it got attention, and I was given the opportunity to apply for seed funding. So it was a week-long process of documenting the whole proposal, applying for the seed funding, and getting the decisions in. And around May this year, I got the decision that it's been accepted, the funding's gone through. So ever since June, I've been working on it. So it's currently under development when it comes to the technological part, but we are aiming towards a November launch, a November demo launch, and while collaborating with like NGOs, organizations, and maybe even the government of Pakistan.
Tell us more a little bit about the seed funding application. How did that process look like for you?
It was honestly a very complicated and very like happening thing for me because one mistake I did in that was that I didn't really read the whole thing properly. And in the end, when I was about to like submit and there were 2 days in the deadline, I kind of realized that mentioning the stakeholders involved and mentioning the collaboration is like one of the main things. And my document didn't really have that at all. So in 2 3 days, I had to reach out to like around 30 40 organizations, 30 40 activists just to like pitch this idea in and get the yes or no because it was needed for the application. Even if they don't really help out, they're them advocating for it or like say, just promoting it was the key. So it was a very like a hectic thing, honestly, due to my negligence when it comes to the reading the document part. But yeah, it was like long nights till 2 3 a.m. like finding out the correct research, because there was a lot of competition for it. Honestly, there were around like 50 to 100 applicants. There was a lot of people, and they chose 5 to 6, if I'm not wrong, from each continent. So yeah, it was a very hectic thing, but it was fun. I learned a lot about documentation and how funding works.
Reaching out to 30 to 40 organizations in a very short amount of time is crazy. I mean, I wonder the amount of commitment it took. So, something really interesting about you on your profile is that you're also interning at Abbott. How do you balance your internship over there and then your leadership with Project Agahi?
My internship with Abbott is mostly based on the strategic part and the data analytics part, and the project is mostly developing AI coding. So it's not that similar. The concept is the same. The KPI and the actionable insights part is the same, but it's very different. And I think balancing part, I'd say that I try to prioritize tasks. I try to prioritize it in a way that at workplace, if something is really needed urgently, I try to not procrastinate, even though it's very hard to do that. But I try my best to do it in order to get things done at the work at my 9 to 5. So when I get home, I have enough time to catch up on it, because I have a team of around 4 people for Project Agahi as well. There's one person for marketing and outreach, and there's 3 developers. So keeping in touch with them, keeping their progress intact, and making sure that they're not stuck into something. So that's just how I balance it, trying to make sure that in that 9 to 5 I cover everything like with full commitment. So when I get home and I have those few hours at home, or maybe on weekends as well, I make sure to communicate with the team so everything stays aligned.
So, 4 members in Project Agahi, is that a team you're planning on expanding? Is there, or are you happy with a small team? And how does the workflow work behind Project Agahi?
So expand is surely possible, I think, because for now the project is in a very demo stage. We'll be demoing it to the organizations and the maybe the authority, the disaster authority of Pakistan as well. And then once what their requirement is and how the use case will be, from there we'll proceed. But the scope of expanding the team is a lot, because the 2 developers I have, it's a very less amount of people, honestly, because developing this whole thing end to end will require like at least like a 10 to 20 people in the tech side. And even for marketing and outreach, there's less hands on deck, honestly, like it's just me and one person. But so far it's been fine. We have a very like small presence, I'd say, on Instagram and on LinkedIn, which I surely want to increase later on. But for now I'm focused more on the technical part. So that's one thing. And regarding the workflow, I'd say that the 4 people, it's not just like one group chat we have. It's like me and the person who's there for marketing. We kind of just brainstorm ideas of how to reach out to people, what kind of content we should put. Because honestly, the content part is just for the digital presence. Whenever we reach out to an organization or the government, we'll need that digital presence and how we are planning to approach and how we are planning to connect with people. Because the engagement part is very important. Because the deadline I've been given for delivering the project, even like some sort of progress to it, is this December to the National Geographic Society. So keeping that in mind, the media outreach and the community engagement part is like the key KPI they need. So the marketing efforts are fully for that. And for technical workflow, it's all about like debugging, testing. Every weekend we have a meeting, we see what errors are coming on and what data set we need. So that's just how it is. It's a very small team, so it's easy, but I'm sure inshallah when it expands, I'll have a very organized workflow.
Right, so something really cool that you mentioned is KPIs. Could you tell us a little more about how you measure progress at Project Agahi, considering that it's still very much in its developmental stages? How do you keep track of what gets done, how quickly it gets done, and etc.?
So I'd say when it comes to the outreach part, when I first reached out to organizations, when I was documenting it, it was honestly tough, because like trying to convince someone into just like instead like without showing any social media presence, without showing any documentation, you're just like typing on paragraph for someone. So the progress measurement, I'd say that the difference between people, the way they react to it and the way they communicate, has been one of the KPIs, I'd say, in this whole journey and so far from like May, June till now. Because the way people react to it, the way people accept it, that's one thing which has improved a lot due to our social media presence, due to our more knowledge. Because when you reach out to someone, obviously it sounds like a crazy idea that you'll be like your system will be sending SMS alerts to rural areas, but obviously a technical person will surely ask how you're going to do it, what data set you'd use. There's just like a bunch of questions. So we have gotten better at answering that. So that's one thing. And other thing I'd say in the technical side, it's all about accuracy, how accurate the system is when it comes to like predicting flood, predicting weather. So that surely has been increasing so far. And like because in the starting the system was going very haywire, honestly. Like we insert data set, we run the system, and it was just not working out. So that has improved. So I think these are the two performance indicators so far I've figured out on Project FI. And there's more, honestly. The amount of people we reach out to, the amount of cities we target, the amount of villages we target. So deep diving it, that will be important. And maybe even the communities we reach out to. There's 4 provinces in Pakistan, and there's like hundreds of NGOs there too. So the people who collaborate with us will surely be another indicator.
Right, and that seems so cool. And on the topic of technical errors, you've mentioned that there has been some technical barriers that you've faced. What's been the toughest technical challenge that you've faced, considering that it is a relatively new idea about the alerts into remote or rural communities, and how did you overcome it?
So the main technical and the biggest one I'd say is that finding the right data set. Because like there's multiple ways you can predict flood. There's a lot of formulas, there's a lot of research done, and it's like an ongoing research. Like there's no perfect formula for like predicting flood, and there's no perfect data you could just feed into a system, because the data depends on the country. In USA, in Europe, there's different type of systems and the data, and similarly for Pakistan's its geographic position, that impacts the data a lot. So that was one of the main things that was we found tough regarding what exact type of data to use. Because when you search, you have a quick ChatGPT search or even like a quick Google search, there's a lot of things coming up. There's a lot of approaches. There's a lot of things they are like suggested to use, but we had to find an efficient one, the efficient data set to use. So that was one thing, and the way we overcame it, I would say, is that we tried out everything. We tried out on dummy data sets. We researched a lot. We even like spoke with a lot of geological experts, as it's a new thing that's still being researched on. So the way we overcame is that we talked to a lot of experts and held meetings with them, showed the way it works with them, and obviously communication between both UAE people in UAE and people in Pakistan, because there's like a difference between how people operate there, how people operate in UAE, and how they see these projects. So that's how we did it.
Okay, that's so cool. So one of the key points you would say is talking to people and talking to experts. So what role has mentorship played in your, not just your personal, but also the professional development of Project Agahi?
Could you repeat the question? There was a glitch in the audio.
Absolutely. So something you talk about is talking to experts. It really helped you get a clearer vision on where you want to take Project Agahi. What role has mentorship played for you in not just your personal, but also your professional development?
I think mentorship has been a key part of who I am, where I am right now. It's coming from school, coming from university, being part of this project. So I'd say that key thing I've learned from being mentored by people, because I was part of the PwC mentorship program as well, the Elevate Me, which ran from December to March, and I had a mentor there as well who I'm frequently in touch with too, regarding the project, regarding job applications, etc. I think one thing I'd say is that everyone has a different perspective and experience, and mentorship is all about learning from someone's perspective. So because there's like 10 different people I could find who have done the similar thing, but their journey, their background, and the way they approach things was very different. So I'd say learning from each perspective, being mentored, surely helped in that way, that I figured out more perspectives. I saw how someone who was my age back then, around 10, 20 years ago, how they did it, and that surely just inspired me to like, just get going with it, that if they can do it in that way, so maybe I have it in me too.
That's so cool. Any specific advice from a mentor that really stuck to you?
One advice that comes to my mind is that when I was like figuring out what major to choose for university, because there was like around 2-3 months left when my A-level exams were starting, and I was like clueless regarding what to apply for, what major to go for. It was like a very tricky situation. So one of my mentors at that time said that you're like, because I was like asking people what subject there's more scope in, if computer science has more scope, and engineering or like business and all that. But what that person said to me is that the scope is all about the person and the way the person's skill set, and not the field you go in. Like he explained it to me in the way that if you stand out in a crowd, you'll surely get in, even if you're an artist, if you're an engineer or like a computer scientist, etc. It's all about standing out and like trying to make sure that you're ahead in that race. That inspired me, because like then I just realized whatever I do, I just need to make sure that I do really well in it, and like I just give my all in order to stand out and not win that race obviously, but like be ahead.
Right, right. And so touching back to regional context and how that shapes how you're moving forward with Project Agahi, you've talked about the regional context shaping the tech adoption that you need for Project Agahi. How does that play a role, or like how does that play out in Pakistan's flood zones, and what have you learned from the local communities, and how has that helped you overcome issues with Project Agahi?
I'd say that one thing I've learned because I shifted from Pakistan in 2013 and things have changed there a lot because I did most of my schooling in UAE, my university in UAE as well. The things are very different there. And when I deep dived into that, I realized that things in each province is different as well. Like how things work in Punjab, how things work in the capital city of Pakistan is very different from how things are in Karachi, how things are in Quetta, for example, in Balochistan. So that's one thing I realized because I wanted to focus more on rural Sindh, focus more on a place where I'm from, but I realized that the similar urge and the similar need is there in like Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, for example. As a recent example, you can see there's been a lot of life loss and a lot of like livestock and infrastructure loss in that region as well. But that's one thing I realized that each province has its need and there's different ways how NGOs work over there. Well, like from what I realized, that the NGOs and communities in Punjab were more open to collaborate and were more developed compared to other provinces. So that's these are just few things I've like learned and like realized throughout this, and it just helped us to like reach out to them in a better way because it's all about, making people like relate to it and making people like connect with it because it's a very like engagement type project. It's not just about the tech, it's about relating with people because everyone has gone through that situation once in their lives in Pakistan, that they're stuck in the traffic because of the floods and like they weren't really aware of it. The government didn't really help them out when it comes to the relief part too. It's a very relatable thing, so it's all about connecting them with them the way you reach out to them.
Agree. I think building connection is really, really important when we talk about any implementation of an organization. So, how do you think the awareness aspect of it should be handled, considering that in Pakistan we know that uh, there is a lack of development, if we're being super honest. So, how does Project Agahi overcome that obstacle?
I think I would say that I agree honestly because like collaborating with the government level organizations will be tough because their needs are different. The way things operate over there is very different from what we are used to as what we have grown up over here. So I would say that one thing I will focus on in the future as well when we like, actually try to collaborate with the disaster authority in Pakistan is that trying to cover all bases and trying to make the proposal in the way that it's understood by the audience over there, both high level and tech. Because the high level audience in Pakistan is very different compared to the high level audience in National Geographic Society who approved that project. The way they see things is different. The way they understood that whole project was different. So I'd say that I will make sure that I tailor make the marketing and I tailor make the whole, proposing the idea in the way that they understand and the way they operate. Because things operate differently there and the technology part is also like very different.
Okay, that's so cool. And so, would you walk us through the technology stack or just the general AI methods that power Project Agahi, and how do you ensure accuracy and reliability in your early warning system?
So regarding the tech stack, I would say that there are two approaches we are working on simultaneously. One approach is training a machine learning model like by feeding the past 20 years of data of flood history data. Because the key indicators for like predicting flood, there's soil erosion part, there's the water depth levels, there's the temperature, there's the wind intensity, there's like historic data. So one system we are planning on is that we feed all the past 20 years of like dummy data, because obviously obtaining data on a government level will only be done when we collaborate with them. So for now we are working on dummy data and like just predicting that. So that's one approach, training it on like 20 years of data. And the other approach is that we'll be try to use APIs, like APIs which can predict the weather, like an open weather map API for example, and using API for like sending SMS alerts as well. Because the whole concept is that you don't really need an application for it. Because in rural areas, as you're aware, that majority of the people still use those phones without Wi-Fi. The only mode of communication is calls or SMS. So the whole concept will be that we use APIs to like send SMS alerts, which is obviously tough obtaining contacts. So one of the other plans is like collaborating with any telecom company, for example. There's Jazz, there's Ufone, etc. So like reaching out to them as well. But the tech stack is, these are the two approaches we have been working on now. In the future, we might choose one in order to demo it, or maybe we can mix both of them as well, like training the model based on the 20 years of data plus adding APIs to it to make sure it's accurate. Because it's all about accuracy in the end. Like the tech stack is pretty easy and simple, but like the training the model in a way that it's like very accurate and like predicts right on time is one of the challenges.
Okay, so would you say it involves a lot of trial and error before there is something of substance that you can put out from Project Agahi?
Surely, yeah. I think whenever you're building a machine learning model and when you're trying to like make a prediction model, there's a lot of trial and error. There's like you try like multiple different types of data and like there's a lot of debugging involved. There'll be a lot of trial and error. Maybe even in the demo as well, like we'll be trying out a different thing, and once we show it to people, they might suggest something else. So again, we'll get back to the trial and error stage and just keep on going with it. So I think that's one thing I realized, that when you're trying to build a model to predict things, you'll surely aren't aware, because it's a new thing for us as well, the geological part in AI. Because like I didn't really have any academic experience, if I'm being honest, when it comes to the geological aspect, and all the knowledge I acquired was from like my externship for like 10 weeks in National Geographic Society. So I'm learning a lot of new concepts as well. So there's a lot of trial and error, honestly.
Okay, and so another really interesting thing is the National Geographic Society. You keep on referencing to it and how it motivated you to come up with Project Agahi in the first place. What inspired you to apply for it, and what inspired you to continue Project Agahi as not just something within the National Geographic program, but also outside of it?
I'd say that the reason I applied for is that when in the job description, in the whole description, it clearly stated that you can like work on a research topic which is based on your country. And I think this was the first time I saw an opportunity where I could maybe research on something which is it's sort of like my major as well, because the externship was about data visualization and analyzing, and like it kind of matched my major. And at the same time, I was sensing an opportunity to like work with something related to Pakistan. And it was a remote opportunity to help. I was like, able to balance it with my academics, because I was in my second last trimester when I started that. So that's one of the reasons I applied. And the second thing, when how it became a whole full-fledged project, is that in the starting it was just a very like high-level theoretical thing. When I was like presenting my final project to National Geographic Society, I was just like, because in the end we were supposed to give out 2 to 3 like strategies the country can work on and how things can be better. And one main strategy I highlighted was using AI. And once I submitted that and I kind of researched more on it, because it was like my spring break at that time, I realized how behind Pakistan is when it comes to like using AI to like actually predict natural disasters. And at the same time, some of the Pakistani regions, especially Sindh, is very like vulnerable. Like every year during monsoon rains, there's a lot of livestock loss, there's a lot of agricultural and human lives are like, lost, and nothing's much done about it to like make things better. That kind of inspired me in a way that I have a sort of AI experience, and this sounds like a very like fun project, and it has an impact to be a big thing. Like it could go from just this seed funding to actually being implemented to the government. That just inspired me to like go on with it, and then honestly things just came in the flow. Like as I said, that like I had 2 days to like reach out to organizations and actually get the yes to put their name in the proposal. So it was very rushed. It was very like fast paced, but I'm grateful it's here.
Right, so out of curiosity, how many organizations did end up replying, and did you actually end up getting a green signal from those organizations?
Uh, the percentage, I would say there was around 10 to 20% who replied. Most of them didn't really respond. And more than organizations, I reached out to like climate activists as well, like solo activists who are part of like the Prime Minister's Council when it comes to like youth empowerment, and some of them were even like involved with the government directly when it comes to like climate activism, and they were leading startups involving that. So there were around 4 or 5 who actually responded. They appreciated the idea and they offered support. So in the span of 2 3 days, I think it was like a great response. Like I expected very less, but I ended up getting like around 6 7 organizations and names which I mentioned in the proposal that they will be offering support. Obviously, not all of them ended up like properly supporting it or consulting, because they got busy in their academic pursuits and like other work they were doing too. So not all of them kind of mostly collaborated, but it was good enough to actually propose it, because then a lot of new people popped out who helped out throughout the development and like the outreach. So yeah, the percentage was like 20% who replied. Most of them didn't.
right, that's so cool. So we have a segment that we usually do. It's called STEM Across Time, and it just gives you a hypothetical scenario, and it's a
Okay.
really creative way to think. So my question for you is, if one day you wake up and Project Agahi has achieved its mission, where every community receives perfect flood alerts, what challenge or global crisis would you like to tackle next with AI?
That's a great question. I hope that becomes reality. But I would say, other than floods, any natural disaster, I'd say that earthquake. Recently, I've read an article regarding how the Google has their own earthquake alert system, and it kind of like failed, and due to that, there was like a lot of life loss in Turkey recently. I think last year it happened, or last to last year. So I would say that if flood alerts work out, I would honestly go to that part, because earthquakes are pretty common in Pakistan as well. So maybe working on that. But other than that, obviously, it's kind of going off the question. But I would say that I would try to make an AI solution, which were like not an AI solution, but like a tech solution, which kind of tracks the flood relief aid given to people. Because honestly, there's a lot of discrepancies in that. There's a lot of money promised to people by the government of Pakistan, and there's a lot of initiatives promised, but they don't end up happening. So I'd say that I try to digitalize it in a way that the right money reaches the right amount of people, and it like helps them out.
That's so cool. And so something really interesting is the implementation of AI within a project like this. And so this is coming from me personally too. AI is just such a talked about topic. It's like everyone just talks about AI, and there's obviously a lot of fear mongering that comes with it too, about how AI is gonna take over the world. So how do you combat those arguments, and how can you, with Project Agahi, prove that AI can be used for more beneficial outcomes rather than just, I don't know, stealing someone's money?
That's a great question. I'd say that a lot of like misconceptions are there about AI. Like people kind of use that as like, if they want to rant to someone, they just go to ChatGPT and talk about it, or like think that ChatGPT has its like own brain and it's like using that. When in reality, it's just using the data. We all use it. Like I'm pretty sure you use ChatGPT for your day-to-day stuff, or like any academic things. And same for me. So all the data it gets is just uses that for your responses. So it's just being trained on data. It's being trained on your data, and like kind not manipulates you, but like gives you the right response. Because ChatGPT's job is to give you the exact right response. So a lot of people are misled by that. So that's one misconception I'd say, and it's one point I'd say when it comes to like arguing about it. And secondly, I'd say that AI, more than replacing human, it's like a tool. And like I'd say that as we go here in like years and years, I'd say that people will become better when it comes to working with AI. Because like more than AI replacing human, it will be about how you like collaborate with AI in order to speed up things. So more than being a replacement for human, it's just like a tool to make our lives easier. And I'm sure it has made lives very easier.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, coming back to the real world consequences or concerns with AI, in today's world, privacy and data misuse are big worries, especially with sensitive topics like natural disasters. Project Agahi uses real time location and personal data to warn people. How do you think about protecting this data and building public trust, especially when working in places with political instability or historic mistrust of institutions, considering Pakistan is an area with a lot of political instability?
That should really be a challenge, honestly, because like I can already imagine how the government would react to it. Because like reducing manpower is like a big no in Pakistan. Like they would rather have like five people doing the same task instead of a computer, like one person using it. That should really be a challenge. But I'd say when it comes to the digital trust part, I try to like make sure to comply with all the laws and comply with all the country's laws, because they'll be like, it's SMS alerts. All contacts will be used in the system, and it will be, even though it will be like a direct collaboration, hopefully, with a telecom provider, it will still be a challenge. So I'd say I think complying with everything, complying with all the laws, will be the best and the whole only thing I would like hope for, and only thing I would like to do. Because like there's a lot of shortcuts to it. There's a lot of like hidden loops which you could utilize in order to get something done. But I think if you keep an honest approach from the start, and just keeping everything very transparent and very clear, especially with the government, things become easy. So that's just one approach I'd say, that like keeping everything real, keeping everything honest, and like showing the true side of the system instead of like sugarcoating it in a way to just get the approval. Because obviously it won't really work out later on, and like the alerts might be wrong, and it could lead to chaos. So there's a lot of like things which could go wrong if we don't really implement it in a better way.
So, would you say transparency is really, really important when working in a project like Project Agahi?
Surely, yeah, any digital project, any computer related project you're working on, whether it's about health, whether it's about something like this, like alerting people, this transparency is the main thing. And I think that's like one of the challenges as well when it comes to AI, and like how it's the buzzword, but there's like a lot of legal things, there's a lot of like privacy related issues, and there's just a lot of things which can be exploited. So transparency is important in like any digital project or any IT project if you do. Even if you're like building a website, for example, for a client, there's still a lot of transparency involved in that.
Right, right. So, something that's also really interesting is I talked about this in one of my early experiences with YSI, where we talked about how our world is becoming increasingly reliant on big data and AI and just the data that is existing and then fed into these AI systems. So critics will obviously argue that AI driven, especially early warning systems, can unintentionally reinforce existing inequalities, especially in vulnerable communities that may lack access to mobile technology or even digital literacy. How does Project Agahi address these equity concerns, and what safeguards are in place to ensure that nobody is left behind regardless of their financial background?
Great question. I'd say that from what I envision when it comes to like actually implementing this project is that would be a very pilot implementation. It's gonna be a month or like a years long implementation, because even if you're targeting just Sindh, there's a lot of districts, a lot of regions in that if you actually deep dive into Sindh. So what my vision is that the implementation will be very pilot. If we're implementing in Karachi, for example, it should be done within one area. We implement it in one area, we check the accuracy, we check all the bottlenecks, and then we move forward. That's one idea I'd say I have when it comes to actually making sure that it doesn't really misguide people, because we won't really be obviously deploying it in just the whole city or the whole state, for example. It will be just implement it in districts, areas, and then we'll get the accuracy, and then we'll work with the government and see how it is. Or not just government, then maybe the local municipalities or like the NGOs, for example. So pilot implementation is one key strategy I have when it comes to answering the questions regarding how accurate it will be. And as you said, it can like misguide people. There can be a lot of chaos due to that.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. And I think especially because you've built partnerships with organizations like the National Geographic Society, it's really cool. So, what did you learn about collaboration or just networking and getting the support of organizations when pitching your idea and bringing in international funders on board? Because that's something that's really cool. I'm going to be very, very honest. Your passion is truly, it shows in the way you talk when you talk about Project Agahi. So, what was that process like, and what did that teach you ultimately about collaboration?
I say that one thing I learned, and I'll like try to give it out as a tip too, is that whenever you're reaching out to someone regarding like pitching something, you should give the quantifiable like points about it, like how it will affect people, the number of people it could affect, for example, and the correct metrics. And the whole proposal I built for National Geographic Society was like served around that as well. Like I kind of mentioned the exact number of people which could be implemented on, the exact number of regions it has a scope on, and like the whole statistics part. Because obviously numbers don't lie. Now, if you present the right numbers to people, if you present the right, actual data, you can surely just get attraction to the any project. So one thing I learned a lot is that whenever you're reaching out to someone or networking, even if you're just sending your CV, for example, about a particular role, you should give out numbers and give out actually like impactful things you did, not just your background. Like I'm a computer science student, I studied there, etc., etc. You should talk more about how impactful you were in one of the projects you worked on, for example, like you decrease workload for like 30%, 35%. Just an example. So like playing with numbers and giving quantifiable impacts is like one thing I learned so far in the journey, and it has worked out so far.
Okay, okay. And so obviously with any new idea, there is a lot of critics, and um, I would say there's people who are very concerned about certain things. And so, what would you say has been one misconception that people have, not just about AI, but AI for disaster preparedness?
One misconception I think people have about this whole AI thing and like AI actually helping out is that how it can be 100% accurate firstly and how easy it is to build. Because like it does sound easy like when you think about AI like just alerting people, you think that you feed weather data and it just alert people. And that's one misconception even I had honestly. I used to think that it would be a very like a simple easygoing data fetching machine model, but like I realized that there's just a lot of things involved in this because when you think about it from a very like wide perspective and like when you actually like deep dive into the whole weather thing, you realize that there's like so many numbers involved. Like in just wind speed, there's a lot of metrics, there's a lot of like boundaries you should check before you actually move on to the next thing. That's one misconception I think people and I myself had, that using AI to like actually predict something is very easy. Like you can predict things if it's gonna happen, yes, no, etc. So that's one misconception I think people do have about this whole like flood alert system as well when it comes to Project Agahi, is that how accurate it will be and like it's like a very easy to implement system, but surely not. I think it's a very like large scale project honestly if you like want to implement it end to end.
Would you say there was a big barrier for you when trying to use tech for good reasons, especially with something like Project Agahi?
I think yeah, because like when it comes to AI, a lot of people, mostly people are focused on how AI can improve their businesses, how AI can you can build an AI agent to do your daily day-to-day tasks, and honestly, those type of projects get more funding these days. They get more like attraction on LinkedIn, on the global media. But when it comes to like actually kind of using it for people, people do like it, but at the same time, they are not really like trying to put in any effort to it if it's without profit, because like and those projects don't really get attention. That was one barrier I had honestly. Like even after I got funding, there was a lot of like misconception about it, and there was a like lack of interest from a lot of people too, because it wasn't really giving them any profit. Even the governments weren't really profiting from it, or like even any NGO. So a lot of people are just focusing on how it can make their lives better, or how AI can make the businesses profitable. So a lot of people are just ignoring the tech for good part. So that's one barrier I had.
Okay, that's a really interesting perspective, considering that we've heard so many good things about AI and how it can improve our lives, and considering that your project focuses on very real issues, the fact that you're mentioning that it's not as likely to get funding is a very, very interesting concept. And so many young people like you, they would want to do good through tech, but it's obviously very easy to feel overwhelmed by where to start. What advice would you give, to the listeners who want to combine their STEM skills with meaningful projects like you've done?
A very high level advice I would give is that this when it comes to STEM, when it comes to computer science, and if you actually want to code something, one advice I would give is that avoid shortcuts. Because with AI these days, a lot of people just go for not learning the basics and actually trying to build something, which I have done myself as well, by the way, in my first year in university. So I'd say that one tip advice, or like one main thing I would say, is that avoid shortcuts whenever you're trying to build something, because like that foundational knowledge you have, the basic knowledge you have of how an AI system is built, or like any tech system is built, that will surely help you. Because when you're pitching it to someone, when you're pitching it to an expert and trying to actually implement it, that basics will come up. Like someone can ask you, how did you build this? How did you build that? So if you have gone for a shortcut route, it will help out. You'll get a lot of funding. You might get $1 million funding as well, for example. But that foundational knowledge will surely come up, and like if you want to sustain something, that'll be needed. So definitely avoid shortcuts and just go with the basics, no matter how boring it sounds.
And so, on the topic of funding, would you say, I mean, you have mentioned that it's harder to get funding for projects that don't necessarily generate profit. How would you say, has that affected your motivation to work on Project Agahi in any way?
Surely, yeah, because like when it comes to National Geographic Society giving the funding as well, this is the first AI project they have funded on. Like from the part they are having this is their third cohort from 2023, if I'm not wrong, and all the cohorts they have had, they have given mostly funding to like actual, maybe if they're building a website, for example, for conservation, or it's like an actually like a very hands-on project, not just a digital thing. So it's the first AI project they've approved. So I think when it comes to the motivation part, I'd say is that I think of it in the way that how much it can affect people. Because like when you're sitting on the laptop, you're coding things, you're just sitting in your room alone. But like when you think of it from a broader perspective, there's like villages, there's people, there's children, there's families who can easily be saved through this project. And so I think that's just what it motivates me honestly. So it sounds a very generic thing, but that's just how it is for me. That's just how I stay motivated, even though some people might be disinterested or there might be like funding issues later on, for example.
So would you say building an AI startup, does it come with facing a lot of rejections?
I think yeah. I think when you're trying, because as I said before, that when there's a lot of lack of profit involved, there's a lack of like fancy thing involved. It does get tough, but at the same time, I believe that when it comes to like collaborating with the government and when you're actually trying to use AI for like this cause, for example, what one thing you should make sure is that try to go for quality instead of trying to make a lot of things at once. Now you can make like 3 4 quick things at once to like predict something, but at the same time they might not work out. So I think in these type of projects which are don't really sound fancy, the quality matters a lot. Now in this project guys context, I'd say that the accuracy of the whole flood alert system is important. It's like the main thing. So if that the system isn't accurate, or already it's a very like something, as I said, that the funding will be tough later on. If the quality isn't good, the accuracy isn't good, then it's just impossible to further take it across the whole like nation wise. So I think the quality of the whole thing is important.
Right. So, and when we were talking about the misconceptions about AI, something you mentioned was the accuracy of AI. What do you think are the misconceptions around that, and how do you plan on addressing those?
In our project's context, the misconceptions are that the readily available data and how like easy it is to find. Because honestly, when it comes to like the weather data, weather forecasting data, like barely anything available on district level. Honestly, the government might have it, the government of Pakistan might have it, the authority system might have it, but like the way it's shown on the internet, the way it's like on data center, it's not that available from what the experience I've had. So I think that's one misconception I'd say, which I also had, is that data is readily available on district level and it's like easy to find it out. But in reality, it's tough to acquire data to train your model on. I think we are working on dummy data for now. So that's one thing.
Would you say there's more research that is required in areas like Pakistan?
Surely, yeah. I think because the research has been done already, but like it's all about implementing that research. Because there's a lot of research papers there, not just from like Pakistan based, but like on a global perspective, regarding how AI system can be built to like predict weather in advance, to predict floods in advance, and all other natural disasters. But lack of implementation, especially in Pakistan, especially in Sindh, for example, is not, the execution is not there at all. Like the implementing part is just missing. So that's one thing which the country should focus on.
And so, on the topic of implementation and actually taking Project Agahi from a stage of just theoretical solutions to actually building something, you mentioned that while you were at the National Geographic Society, when you were presenting this idea, it was just something theoretical. So, what helped you take that step into actually making this a real project and having a real life impact?
What one thing which motivated me and like was driving me throughout the whole thing is that there already has been a lot of progress made in other countries. There's been a lot of projects people have worked on which have used AI in order to accurately predict floods, to accurately predict the disasters, like other disasters as well. So one thing which was driving me in that is that there's a lot of research papers there. There's a lot of like actual theoretical and like practical things too which are being implemented. So I just kind of realized that if it can happen in this country A, country X or country Y or country Z, why not Pakistan?
Okay, cool. And so with Pakistan, there are very unique challenges that being in Pakistan or having a project in Pakistan you're going to face, whether that's the infrastructure, the trust, or even the language barriers. Does that somehow influence the way you design Project Agahi's alerts?
Surely, yeah, because one of my plans is that whenever there's a flood alert, we'll try to tailor make it in a way that's in the local language. Now, if it's being implemented in Sindh, for example, the SMS alert can be transcribed into Sindhi. It won't be written in English, it could be written in Urdu or Sindhi. So that's one of the ideas we have, and like one of the ideas I'd say which can help reach out to people because there's a lot of languages in Pakistan. Each village has its own dialect. So like research on dialect will surely be needed. But I think that this is one of the plans we have in order to reach out to more people. And obviously, other than that, I think outreach and social media campaign in the future, I have it in plans that we for now it's in English, but like later on we can like show it in different languages, we can show it in different dialects and show different perspectives in order to connect well people with NGOs like local communities.
Okay, and so community trust seems really, really crucial when working with Project Agahi. How do you plan on gaining and maintaining the trust of people who not just depend on your service, but also who are dealing with this new and often misunderstood technology like AI?
One of our plans and one of the things I mentioned in my proposal as well, because I'm planning a trip to Pakistan as well to actually demo it and like be physically there. So one strategy which will help in this challenge is that we'll try to train local champions, like local people who are tech aware, who are aware of how tech systems work, and to train them to understand the alerts, and then they can further train people. Now, for example, in one village, if we give a workshop to a few people who are like technically aware and like they know how the system is working, how SMS alerts will work. So if you train local champions, they can raise awareness in the village and they can actually tell people about it and make people understand. So like training local champions and actually giving like engaging sessions to people is one of the plans we have. Because as I said, the implementation will be very pilot. Like it will be done in a very small district in Sindh, for example. And once we get the response from there and how accurate it is, we can work on other provinces.
So would you say the involvement of Pakistani youth is very, very important when working with Project Agahi?
Surely, yeah, because the passion I have and the passion my team has for the project, we'll need others and the local champions, especially and the NGOs, to support it in a similar way. Because the wavelength of passion, just matching, will be the main thing which drives the whole project. So surely, yeah, I think interest and people actually trying and putting in efforts will be needed, and I hope for that honestly. Because when we were negatively talking about the government being supportive, I think there's a lot of positive things we can talk about when it comes to the youth of Pakistan and how interested they are when it comes to implementing these type of things. So I'm hopeful in that.
Okay, that's really cool. I think I really enjoyed hearing about Project Agahi. So is there one message you would like to give to our listeners about Project Agahi or about AI-driven solutions?
Sure. So I'd say one final message about not just Project Agai but AI-driven solutions is that the moral aspect is very important when you're building an AI solution or when you're building any tech solution, because you should think about it in a way that if there is any negative effect of your whole project, that person could be you later on as well. You could be negatively impacted by that as well. Like you put yourself in. As I said, Project Agai became that project because I personally went through the whole thing as well. I personally saw my family members and me myself being affected by floods, being affected by rains when we were living in Karachi back in 2010. So I think personal experiences helped a lot, and whenever you're building something, just think it up in a way that if something bad happens later on, it could be you. So just make sure you putting that human aspect first before going for profit or before going for extra revenue.
That's absolutely lovely. Thank you, Saim, for showing us what's possible when passion, being tech literate, and being a committed person to community, when all of those features come together, it really shows us the impact that we can have on the world. Your story reminds us that STEM isn't just about innovations, it's about changing lives, whether that's in neighborhoods, in villages, or even in underdeveloped countries, especially being someone who's from Pakistan. It's so heartwarming to see initiatives like this take place, considering that we definitely need more initiatives like this. We can't wait to see what waves you make next. Thank you so much for being a part of the Cross Tech with my.
Thank you so much for having me.